Viewer discretion is advised.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the New to Wrestling Podcast After Dark. Tonight, we are getting into the amazing, incredible life of Yokozuna. I am very excited to talk about this person because, very unfortunately, I really, in our other show, only saw him, like, for a brief stint.
Yeah. You got,
Like-
the tail end of it, and you didn't get, prime Yokozuna.
Yeah, prime. And, like, I am sad about that because watching this I was like, oh my god. And
Right.
like I still appreciate and respect him when we watched him then, and that was the tail end. I can't imagine watching him in his prime.
Right.
But yeah, so if you're joining us tonight, we're gonna get into that. We watched the WWE Icons show. It was season 1, episode 1 on Peacock. So if you want to watch along and join us in this conversation, please do. Also, by the way, I am Kelsey, your host. This is my best friend Xavier. If you're new here, welcome.
Welcome.
So yeah, tonight we're gonna get into Yokozuna. I'm excited. So Yokozuna his real name is Rodney Anoa'i. And I'm sure all of you are familiar with the Anoa'i family because they span the wrestling industry like a blanket. They are everywhere.
Yes.
And they're all incredible. They're all like the most iconic, gentle, wonderful people. It's like I'm starting to believe that like kindness is genetic. Like I don't know, because they just all seem so genuine and lovely.
Yeah.
So Rodney was born in Carson, California, or at least he grew up in Carson, California. We meet his sister, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounce this name. But it's his sister Elevera. Elevera. I'm just gonna say Elevera. I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, but Afa and Sika, that is his sister, and she says Rodney was always a very special person. I knew that I was always protected, and he took a lot of responsibility as the older child when his parents were working. And then we meet Rikishi, who is Rodney / Yokozuna's cousin, which I am so excited because I have not really seen any of Rikishi, but I know how much.
Though.
But I have, but not real, but not as Rikishi.
No, he is not Rikishi yet.
Yes,
he's the Sultan currently,
which is crazy.
Yes.
I can't even fathom that at this point. And obviously, this episode was about Yokozuna, so we didn't even like talk about the fact that Rikishi was the Sultan at one point. Like we didn't even get into it. But it is like literally impossible for me to take in my brain at this time.
Yes,
but they are cousins. And very close, and he has some of the most like beautiful sentiments throughout this whole episode. I loved.
Yeah, amazing. Rikishi's also the father of the Usos.
Yes.
Just so
okay. I literally, please know that when I am done with this, I am going to be drawing up a family tree because I need to try and understand.
They already have it. So
yeah, because they post it like in the back, right, when they were doing the whole like Rhodes.
Roman Reigns like storyline situation. Yeah. So they have and they had it at like the fan expo thing that I worked at. They had it like blown up, like huge.
I want
they had an entire like bloodline exhibit, I guess, where you could see like a bunch of their like stuff. And
I just want to say I can 100% understand why that storyline is fascinating to people, like the Roman Reigns storyline, because it captured me even just watching this, which is Yokozuna is almost like he's not the origin, but he's like a huge piece of it.
He's the one that kind of takes them like into like a more like prominent role. Where they're now seen as like outside of like tag teams and specific things. So he's the one who kind of like brings it forward.
Right. Roman Reigns, I think, says it at the end where he's the one that took us like to champion status. Like, but anyway, we meet Rikishi. And he says where Rod grew up in LA, it was a rough neighborhood, a lot of gang violence, but his dad was in the Marines and he did not play. Like he was a real like straight shooter. He did not let his kids get out of line. He said if Rod ever stepped out of line, his dad would whip him right back into shape, but in the good Samoan way.
Yeah.
And Elevera says he was a good kid, but he was skipping classes, which I love this iteration of a human being that like exists and people never speak about. It's like the person who's actually a really good person, they just like do not like give a shit about school. And they're like,
Yeah.
I just know this is like, cause she's like, he wasn't a bad kid. He just didn't go to school. Like he was
Right.
not about that life, but he was like one
Mhm.
of the best people I know. But it's crazy because he said she said their parents didn't find out he wasn't going to graduate until the month he was supposed to graduate.
Right.
The way my parents would have skinned me alive if the
Alive.
month I was supposed to graduate, they were like, just kidding. I missed like
Mhm.
70 days of school for
Right.
funsies. Livid.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Livid. Um, but they didn't want him sitting around the house, so that's how he ended up spending time with his uncles, who were the Wild Samoans, who
Yes.
are Afa and Sika Anoa'i.
Right.
And they were one of the most notorious tag teams of the 1980s. They, first of all,
Yes.
beautiful people. This
Mhm.
whole episode is filled with just beautiful people.
Mhm.
Um, and they had a wrestling operation training facility called the Wild Samoan Training Facility in Pensacola, Florida, and Rodney joined several of his cousins in the family business. So it was like run by his like incredible uncles, Afa and Sika, and they were just like having this insane training facility with like him and all his
Mhm.
cousins.
Yeah, it was like Sam, Samu, Rikishi, and Rodney all
Amazing.
came up like at the same time. We're training together.
I was saying to Xavier before we started, I was like, honestly, like I wish I was in a family like this.
That
Like,
runs this deep.
yes, because I was like, they're so big. There's so many of them, but they all seem to genuinely root for one another. And like, you never know what goes on behind closed doors. You never know what's actually going on or whatever.
Mhm.
But like the way they seemed so genuinely to care about one another and like know each other. And like, even there's a part later where like Yokozuna, they're talking about how his nightly phone calls is like he
Mhm.
calls basically everyone to like tell him how his day was and like
Yeah.
every member of his
This
family.
sounds
Like
like
they're
my family. Like this sounds like act like
really?
pick up, yeah, my family. My father on the way on the drive home from work calls everybody. My grandma is more social like via the telephone than I will ever be. She's got mad friends all day long. She's like she's calling Blanca, she's calling this one. She's got 5 kids. She runs through the list. Like she's it's just very like that. And it's just a very like um it is very unlike American families in that it is very community based. Like
Yes.
very, very like it is like the good of the many is kind of taken kind of far above like the interest of yourself, which is a not American concept. Like so
I know, and I kind of love it because not like the American concept, like having the good of the culture, the tribe, the
mhm.
community, like all of that being like the health and the
The wellness of the
function, the
family. Yeah.
wellness, like all of it is just so essential and like you just
Hmm.
support each other and lift each other up. Like I wish, and I feel like this is like going to be me in the future because the way I will never answer a text message, but you can call me anytime and I will answer. Like
Mm.
I'm so much better at like answering the phone than I am answering a text message. I'm like so old school. So the way I would run through,
Hmm.
I feel like that's gonna be me when I'm old and gray and just
Yeah,
running
just
through my list of phone
hmm
calls,
can't wait.
gossiping. Can't wait. So we meet Alpha. He says, I told these kids they had to work their butts off, and I trained them to be respectful. I trained them to pay their dues, and we'll open the door for you, but you have to do your job. We were very rough on them.
Hmm.
Um, Crazy. And Sika says that's just how the game is. You got to lay them in. You got to get there and sweat.
Hmm.
So obviously and it shows. I mean, these kids were putting in work and all of
Right.
them were insanely successful and like
Hmm.
incredible wrestlers. Sam Anuai or Samu is also another cousin of Rodney. He says it was hard, but it was some of the most fun years of our lives. And I can't imagine like what that engenders in like a group of kids. Like you're growing
Right.
up and you're doing something so difficult every single day, but you're doing it together. The trust that it builds, like the
Hmm.
community that it builds, like it must just be an insane connection.
And I imagine it must have been important for like the Wild Samoans to like not just uh to make sure that they earned it, in terms of like not just using the connections that
The
they have
name.
already built with Vince. We learned later that
Yes.
they have a very good relationship.
Right.
Mind you, like Vince and them were like essentially like the same age when Vince takes over as like the owner of the WWF from his father.
Mm-hmm.
So he really is like especially at this time on like a much more friend peer level with people than he is like later on. Becomes
Right.
very much like the authority, and we see that we talked about that during like the steroid trial when it like in terms of his friendship with like Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like the Wild Samoans were really good friends with Vince, but instead of
Mm-hmm.
just exploiting that and being like, "Hey, like I have all of these, whatever," they were like, "Oh no, you're gonna earn it."
Because, yeah, if I'm coming to you, to my boss and my friend with you, you better
Right.
like live up to it's like I rarely ever recommended anyone for a job where I worked, like any of my friends. I was like, unless you guys are actually going to work here, you can't come here because
No.
like my reputation is at stake. Like my
Right.
relationship with my boss is now at stake. Like
Hmm.
you're not coming here unless I think that you can definitely like bust your ass.
Yeah. Honestly.
Cause so I get it. I completely
Hmm.
get it. Rikishi says, we all became very, very close. Afa and Sika were like fathers to us. And when I say Rodney loved professional wrestling, he loved professional wrestling. Like he enjoyed it, he thrived, he just found a lot of joy in it, like just loved it. Then we meet Lloyd Anoa'i, who's another cousin. There's a lot of cousins.
There's a lot of cousins. Yeah.
And he said Rodney started doing the independent circuits as Coquina Maximus.
Hmm.
And as big as he was a natural mover. He was like extremely athletic, which we know. Like just
Right.
even watching him the few times that I did, I was like I remember talking about this and being like he is just like something to behold. Like
Right.
he is so agile for somebody so big. Um and Afa says, we saw his potential and we knew that with the right discipline, he could do it. He could take it
Hmm.
there. His sister says, I was so proud. It felt like he was accomplishing something with his life. And in 1987, at the age of 21, Rodney and his girlfriend have a daughter, Kaylani. And then the following year, they have a son, Justin. And Lloyd says that was amazing for him and he was a great dad, but it really put the pressure on him to succeed.
Right.
Like to really um I think Oliveira says like he was a dad and that all he knew was wrestling. So he knew that's what he needed to do to take care of his kids. Like at that point, he doesn't have a high school degree. He doesn't have any other prospects as a job. Now he has two kids, and wrestling is the only thing he knows, is good at, and likes. And so now he like has to make that his meal ticket to support
Hmm.
his family,
Right.
which is like a story we hear with so many wrestlers where it's
Right.
like this, okay, well, now I got to take this all the way because this is
My
what's going
life
to pay
now.
the
Yeah.
bills.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, we meet also Gerald Briscoe, who's a
Hmm.
WWE Hall of Famer.
And if
Um,
you notice, he's always one of the stooges that comes out, like to like stop a fight.
oh, I
Gerald
didn't know
Briscoe is
that.
always one of them.
I feel like I recognize some of these people, and then some people I was like, I
Yeah,
literally,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And then Bruce Pritchard, like the executive director, still there to this day.
yep.
So, also has kind of it is unclear how much he knew about all of the Vince McMahon nonsense that's going on.
Mm,
So the jury's still
uh-huh.
out on Bruce,
Well,
but
it's so funny you say that because I like could not get a read on him. And because there were some things he said that that were almost like a little nasty. And then he would kind of come back and be like nice. And I was like,
what are you?
I can't get a
What is
read
your
on you.
flavor? Like,
Yeah, I really couldn't. And like, because there were some things where I was like, oh, is he just saying that as a professional? And I guess we'll get into it. But is he
mm,
just saying that because he's was a professional in the business and this person was like one of his employees and he felt some type of way about it, or he's just like kind of being a dick? And then he would like say Yokozuna is one of the greatest people he ever knew. And I was like,
mm,
which isn't?
right.
Which isn't? He really threw me through a loop. Really threw me
Hmm.
through a loop. But Gerald says the Wild Samoans went to WWE and said, I've got this really big guy. And at the time, we really liked big guys, which we
Hmm.
know.
Right.
And then Bruce says, we took a trip and saw Coquina and thought, wow, this guy has it all. We asked him to come for a tryout, and you couldn't help but be impressed. I mean, he was just incredible.
Hmm.
Rikishi says he wanted to go to the WWE. We all did, like that was the dream. And Rodney gets the call to go in with Big Sam as the head shrinkers.
Right.
But this is crazy, and I feel like it's one of those moments where it's like it might make me believe in destiny until like real life gets in play, and I'm like, I don't know. But like one of these, it's just a weird thing that ends up working out for everybody involved.
Yes.
Rodney, and this is so bizarre, gets a cut on his leg, and it gets so badly infected that he can't make his debut as one of the head shrinkers. So Rikishi steps in and does it with Sam instead.
Right.
Then that was in July of 1992, and Rikishi's like, he literally opened the door for me. Like this random freak thing like is the reason I like kind of really got to step into WWE,
right.
which is crazy. And then in September, it was September 1st, 1992. It was a non-televised match, and Rodney debuted as Coquina Maximus. Or it was Coquina the Wild Samoan. Like they kind of went in this like, you know, the
it's
same
Coquina,
Samoan.
like moniker changes. Like
yes, fully. Like nicknames out the wazoo. But it wasn't working.
Right.
And so then we meet Sergeant Slaughter, which is a hysterical name, love.
Yes.
So funny. WWE Hall of Famer. And he said, Vince came to me and said, you know, I like, you see that guy over there? And he's like, yeah. He goes, I mean, he's so hell of a talent. And Vince is like, well, now I got 7 Samoans. So like, what am I going to do with him? Like, because, you know, I can't just keep running the same gig.
Right.
And apparently Sergeant Slaughter is the one that suggested the sumo wrestler. Allegedly.
Right.
And they have Vince in this episode, which I'm just gonna say this, and I don't feel bad about it because he's a terrible person. Aging like milk. My God, he is ugly.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I don't even feel bad about it. Even if he was the greatest person in the world, my God.
Like milk.
Milk. Curdled. Smelly.
That's what happens when you like literally sleep like 3 hours a night and are a terrible person. You age
it's
like
worse
milk.
It's worse than the presidents, I really think. Like the president of the United States, you know, there's that thing where they age like 10 years within 4 years or like longer, whatever.
Right.
I mean, he looks bad. Anyway.
But it's okay, he looks worse now, so
I believe it.
But it's because he started dyeing his hair and he grew like a gross mustache. Like not like I love my mustache. His
your mustache is great.
Gross.
I don't he looks like a skin tag.
Well, I can't unsee that.
If I have to think of it, you have to be a part of it.
That's fine.
Get in my brain. It's horrible.
It isn't the best friend contract, I understand.
Okay, thanks. I hate it. But Vince hears the sumo wrestling idea and he goes, oof, I actually like that and I think that could work. So Yokozuna, the name literally means grand champion. Like in sumo culture, like the Yokozuna is like the top sumo wrestler, you know, around. And like, so, which I love. I love that I love when names actually mean something. Like, let's just put in that teeny bit of effort to like make something mean something. So incredible. And then we talked to Roman Reigns, who is yet another cousin. Yet another. And he says, it was the first time I saw one of my family members depicted larger than life outside of being a Polynesian savage, essentially. Like to step outside of the box of just being like the wild Samoan or like
the head shrinkers.
Head shrinkers, this like tribal, like you don't know what they're going to do. Like it was just a totally different avenue. And Rikishi says, we were so confident in the training we got from our uncles that we knew any character you threw at us, we could make it come alive. And I mean,
like,
not wrong. I mean, when I first saw Yokozuna, I didn't believe he wasn't a sumo. I was like, that's 100% sumo wrestler. That's crazy that they got one of those. That's wild.
Yeah.
like I did not for 1 second believe that's not what he was.
Yeah. And that's because he was so like just into it. Like when he was out there, he was present. He was in it.
He was in it, and I love that about him. So they pair him up with the manager, Mr. Fuji, who'd been wrestling since the 1960s. And Sam Fatu, who's the Tonga kid, another cousin, says Mr. Fuji's the one that taught Rodney about the business, like the ins and out of the business. Like his uncles taught him like the wrestling, like the culture of the moves and the partners and the, you know, all of that. But then like Mr. Fuji taught him like the business side of it. And for Superstars, I guess his debut as Yokozuna was Superstars on October 31st, 1992. So that is such a quick switch up. Like from September 1st
Right.
to October 31st, they were like, within a month, they were like, this is not working. We got to change this right now.
Right.
And this big switch up. And Bruce was like, when he took that robe off, it was that oh my God moment. Like we knew that this hit it, like people were awed. And they showed like clips of the audience from that moment, and there were little kids just
No, yeah.
like could not believe their eyes. They were so enamored and like thrilled by this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we get the Undertaker, which
Uh,
what a pleasant surprise to find out Undertaker was like BFFs with Yokozuna.
yeah, there's actually like a lot of like you like pictures and stuff like of them like playing like cards backstage,
I would love
and
to see
like
it.
they were in they had like this dumb like little name for their like group. It was like the Bone whatever they talked about it in one of the documentaries, the Bone something kids, Bone Yard something. Anyway.
I just love that. I just love that man. He's never
Hmm.
hurt me in any way.
Taker?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so far, nothing he's ever done, I've been like, what the
No,
heck? Like I'm always just like,
he's just well respected, period, point blank from everybody. Like,
it's just it's such a good thing because like you never want to meet your heroes, and like I would die if I ever even just saw him in person.
yeah.
But I like he just seems like he matches the energy that he has around him.
Yeah.
Like and that it just makes me feel more at peace knowing there are people out there still that like aren't that are in such a place of like exaltation, and they're not shitty.
He's like the oh no, I agree. They had this thing like with the locker room like court, and how
Yes.
Taker was like
Mm-hmm.
the judge because he was the only one like respected by everybody. So like whatever he
So hot.
said like went.
God
And
bless
like
his wife.
and it,
You nailed a good one. Good for you, bro.
throughout his entire career, it was like everyone says like he was the leader in the locker room. Like he was the one that like kept the peace, kept everyone like focused on what they were supposed to be doing, and like just kept the train moving, kept morale up. He got it.
Love that guy for real. Anyway.
I love
Uh
that.
and then we also talked to Stone Cold, which love to
Hmm.
see Stone Cold. Said he was a big man, but he was an awesome big man, like crazy agile, just super talented.
Hmm.
We also meet well not me, but we are introduced in the documentary to Bret Hart. And he goes, it was like a stegosaurus walking into the ring. Like he was
Yeah.
just a big man.
He goes, holy
Um,
shit, look at this guy.
look at this guy. Bret Hart is so funny. Like the
Hmm.
way he was in this documentary, and I feel like the way he is a lot now is just he's so like
It's just matter of fact and like
yes.
dry and like
Yes. He
yeah.
kind of reminded me of Tommy Dreamer in the ECW documentary, where it's just like he's saying the most insane thing, and he's just like, yeah, so it
So
was like just
so he means it. That's
he
that's
doesn't
that's
even
what you mean. Like
move.
he means it.
Yes, like that is just the facts. Like I don't doubt him for crazy. I could really learn something from him because I'd be expostulating.
No, same.
It's crazy. But we also I'm so excited because Mark Henry is in this documentary,
Hmm.
and we've only glimpsed Mark Henry like a year ago, and like he just kind of
Like
disappeared.
disappeared. Yeah.
And so I'm excited that he'll be coming back and playing a bigger role at some point.
Yes, he
Okay,
will.
great. I'm so thrilled by that because I love Mark Henry, even the tiniest
Hmm.
glimpse we got, and the fact that he ends up becoming a WWE Hall of Famer. I'm like, okay, so he'll be back.
Oh, he has
He'll
a he has a like very long career. Very long
Oh,
career.
I can't wait. I really miss him. I really do.
Hmm.
Um, and Mark Henry says, as a fan, I was just like, wow. I mean, he represented me, like the big guy. He just like I felt like I saw myself when he
Hmm.
wrestled. Um, Kevin Nash was in this for just like a blip, but he says he was amazingly agile for a big man. And Undertaker says that when he saw him wrestling, he begged Vince to let them work together because he was like, I could do some real work with him. And Undertaker, again, he doesn't mince words. He was like, I was at this point where I was like, I had kind of wiped everybody out. Like there was no one really
Yeah.
challenging me at that point because he's 6'10" and a half. And like,
Hmm.
he's just very talented. And he was like, oh, I could work with that. Like I could have some
Yeah.
challenging,
And he also
interesting
had
matches.
some matches like prior to this point with people who were very limited in the ring. We'll put
Mm,
it that way, where he had to do a lot of the carrying of the match.
right.
Uh, but he knew that Rodney was like his like fundamentals were solid, so that they could have
Yes.
like a solid match. And he knew that the way that the two of them looked, it would like just be like larger than life.
Love
So
that.
Taker saw money.
Love that about him though. And but he was in a respectful way where it's not like I'm just
No,
gonna
no, no.
use you for dollars and cents. Just like we could make money if we work
Right.
together.
Hmm.
Bret Hart says, he came at a time when we needed just the great big heel.
Yeah.
Like just a big mean
Monster.
heel, a
Yep.
monster. Lloyd says Vince saw money in Rodney. Like
Hmm.
just dollars, dollars, dollars. Vince always had a special relationship with our family, like you were saying, his friendship with Sika and Afa. That really like transcended business. Like they were very close. Vince, I think
Hmm.
at one point mentions they were a borderline like brothers family, like
Right.
very, very close. Um, and Undertaker says Vince knew what he had, and what he had was a killer heel. We also talked to Jerry the King Lawler. He was completely different backstage, though. He was always in a good mood. Like his character was
Hmm.
mean, heel, monster, whatever. And then backstage, he was laughing, smiling, joking. He was the funny guy. He was chill, laid back. Bret Hart says, what I remember is how much fun he was in the dressing room. He would have music going on, he'd be singing in the shower. And I love that visual.
Right.
I
Right.
love that they're back there in the boys' club singing in the shower.
Right. So
Love
cute.
that for me.
So cute.
Um, Bruce says watching Yokozuna eat was a sight in and of itself. And I was like I get that's where this is going, but it was just like jarring to suddenly him be like, yeah, watching him eat was like a miracle. Like it was like this beautiful, crazy thing. And they did this. I don't know why this rubbed me the wrong way. And like I understand that was like that's part of the character, but they did just like a video where he's like at Yokozuna's at like a hibachi steakhouse and they just film him like eating. Like
Yeah. Everything.
endless amounts of food. Like they said they cooked enough food for 20 people and he ate every last bite. And I don't know why, and maybe it's like a diet culture thing nowadays where I don't know why that like rubs me the wrong way, but they just filmed him eating and like made it this like spectacle this whole time. And again, I guess that's like his character. And I know in like sumo culture, it's like like it's a thing like that like how much you
Mm.
eat and whatever. Like it's a thing. But I was like, I don't know why that like rubbed me the wrong way where they were just like, watch this big man eat. Isn't it so crazy? Like, I don't
Right.
know.
Because
And again, that could
it
be my
gives
own
very
internalized.
like Ripley's Believe It or Not. Like
Yes.
look at this freak. You know what I mean? Where it's like
Yeah.
that. Also, like, did they make the first like mukbang?
Oh,
Now that I'm thinking about it.
was that the first one? Curious.
Curious.
The first one on this side of the pond, I guess.
I
But
guess, yeah.
that's crazy. I don't know why. Again, it could be my own internalized like diet culture, ED, whatever. But
Hmm.
like, just it was just like weird. They were like it just
Look at him.
felt
Yeah,
very
no.
odd.
Hmm.
But
But that goes very much so with wrestlers that were in that same vein of like, like they did the same thing to Andre.
mm,
Where it's like
mm-hmm,
he like not it's not so much seeing him wrestle is the spectacle. He is the spectacle. Like he is the
mm-hmm.
attraction. Um
Yes,
so
that's a good
it's
point.
them playing on that essentially.
Right. Well,
Not
that makes
well,
sense.
but that is where I think the thought process was behind.
That makes a lot of sense now that you said that. That's a good point. But Lloyd, says he was a bundle of joy, always laughing, having a good time until the bell rang, and then he was like all business. Um, so in the Royal Rumble of January 24th, 1993, Yokozuna takes home the win, which is
Hmm.
crazy. Rikishi says I knew it meant a lot to him I knew it meant a lot to him to get that trust from the company that the big man could carry the ball. Because if you win the Royal Rumble, you get the title shot at WrestleMania. Or at least that was the stipulation for this one. I don't know if it's
Hmm.
the stipulation for all.
Hmm.
But he was gonna get the title shot at WrestleMania, which is crazy.
Hmm.
Um and so he was going to be competing for the title against Bret Hart at WrestleMania 9. Rikishi says it was a huge day for the family. Everyone flew in from all over to support him. We must have been 200 strong. That's
I
crazy.
believe it.
He
I
said
believe
that
it.
with no exaggeration. I know he meant that.
No, no, yeah. They were probably like vanning their family in. Like just like
And I'm into that. Again,
no.
I love it. I love it
Hmm.
because that's what I'm saying. The support feels so genuine and not like, oh, not even like that pick me energy of like, oh, like my third cousin is like gonna be, we should like go
No,
like
no,
get
no.
our
Like they all
legit
just like
support.
it's like in like my family where it's like There are no like first, second, whatever. Just cousins. Like you're just family. You are just family.
I
Like we
love
don't qualify.
that.
We don't do half. We don't do whatever. We don't do step. It is just family.
I love that. I think that's the
So
best
I think
ever.
that's kind of like the same kind of like vibe where it's just like, oh no, like one of us is doing well, let's go. Like
We
so
have to be there.
right,
I love
obviously.
that.
Like
That I
it's like if one of us do well, we all do well. Like his win is our win. Like that
Everybody
is how
eats.
that works. Yeah.
Everybody eats. It's the same energy of like I love when people have like 60 people at a graduation.
Same.
Like
Same,
I
same,
love
same.
where it's like, oh well, your cousin's graduating, we all gotta go. And
Right.
it's just like I
I
love
agree.
that. And
No, I agree.
anyway, um so Roman Reigns says it was bigger than the Super Bowl for us. Like it was a crazy day, like literally just the most immaculate vibes in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing him send endorphins through my body, Rodney was the man and you could feel it in the air that like this was big.
Mm-hmm.
Um this this whole thing is so crazy. Bret Hart says there was supposed to be a part A and a part B of like the match, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in terms of
The flow of
moves and the
events. Yeah.
flow. Yes. But for reasons, he goes, I will literally never know. I don't know if it's because he
Winded or if he just
winded or
missed
tired or
something or
something.
like
Yeah, they went right from part A to the finisher. And so I guess like the finishers had something to do with Mr. Fuji blowing powder in Bret Hart's face while Bret Hart had Yokozuna in the sharpshooter.
right.
And he goes, and let me tell you, it was so hard to hold Yokozuna in a sharpshooter, like because his legs are
So thick,
gigantic.
so heavy.
I can't imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And because it took a while for Mr. Fuji to get the message of, oh, I actually need to get the powder because we skipped part B and we're
Right.
already here. Mr. Fuji hits Brett with the powder. Yokozuna becomes the champion. And Roman Reigns, and I was so excited. This pissed me off real bad. Roman Reigns goes,
Don't don't even get me
we were
started
so proud of
on the Hulk
him.
Hogan of it all.
Girl,
Go
we'll
ahead.
get Roman Reigns like we were so proud of him, and then here he comes. And I literally paused because I was like, what's gonna happen here? Because
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm about to be pissed off. I know I'm about to be pissed off. So Hulk comes out and he's like, oh, he's helping Bret Hart, la la la, like get off the stage or something. And for some reason, Mr. Fuji's like, oh, Hulk, like, we'll put our brand new belt on the line if you just get in here and fight Yokozuna. Like, just get
Mm-hmm.
in here and fight him. Like, nah, nah, nah. And so, what essentially happens is Hulk gets in there. He's like, oh, who, me? La la la, who me? I'll get in there. He gets in there, and there's like a mishap with the powder again, where Mr. Fuji goes to blow the powder and at Hulk and hits Yokozuna, thus enabling Hulk to get the win, and Hulk becomes the champion.
Right.
Outrageous.
Outrageous.
Disgusting.
Outrageous, but so true to form as far as who Hulk Hogan is.
I hate
Because
him.
this energy, it's fine. Lots
I
of
was
people
like, oop,
do.
that came right out. Sorry.
Lots of people do. This energy,
Disgusting.
all of this, he takes to WCW and puts it in writing that he can just like say yes or no to the finish of his like matches or what he's involved in, or he puts creative control. Basically, the relationship that he had with Vince allowed him to manipulate himself into this scenario, much to the chagrin of Bret Hart. First of
Everyone.
all, I'm sure Yokozuna was not pleased, like in the grand
Yes.
scheme. Like, granted, he's young in his career. Like, I'm sure there is like an energy of like just happy to be here, but you just
No.
won the belts
No.
just to give it to some guy who's just been established for however many years and just wants the belt on him.
No.
Like that is I cannot.
Livid.
This is the thing about Hulk Hogan that makes me rage is that yes, he would like what he did for wrestling, we will never be able to take away from the man. Never, ever, ever. He was the one who brought it from regional things to a national platform and made it popular. Like made it like pop culture popular.
Mm-hmm.
We'll never be able to take that away from him. But And we're gonna watch the Who Killed WCW pay-per-view. But this energy of being like self-serving is just truly just who he is.
Hate it.
He truly believes that the best case scenario for wrestling is that if Hulk Hogan's on top always. So they like go into this whole thing where it's like, oh, it was going to be like Hulk Hogan's like farewell tour.
Yeah,
So we
yeah,
thought it
yeah.
would be like beneficial to like have him like have like the championship or whatever. And you're like, first of all, you just had a whole steroid trial
Oh,
where this man is at the center of it all. Um, and you're trying to like steer away from him and the people that were associated with that whole thing. So you start this whole youth movement with like Bret Hart, like Yokozuna, like all that good stuff. You start all that just to give it back to him. Like, what logic is this?
so
What
shitty.
logic is this? And then he takes this in his head, is like, oh, like I have like control like that. Okay, he takes it in his head. So when he like f's off to WCW and he's now dealing with a much younger, much more inexperienced like showrunner in Eric Bischoff, right in my back pocket, right in my back pocket. Any decision I want, I'm just gonna make sure that it's Eric, come here. I want to do this. Horrible, horrible.
It's awful.
It's so self-serving, and it's just like,
awful.
and to take that moment away from somebody who is like just like worked their ass off, like trained, put in the work, and is finally given the opportunity, and then you just go, no, actually, that's for me. I'm gonna come out on top. Like, how shitty.
So horrible. So horrible. There were so many things about this that pissed me off. I literally had to take a break. I was like, I have to take a walk. Like,
Right.
it's like, this
I
made
get
me
it.
so mad. Because like you said, Bruce Pritchard seemed irritated by this. Like he seemed like he was pissed off that this happened. Because he says, like you said, our plan was for Yokozuna to win and be the champion for a good long while.
Right.
And that changed the weekend of WrestleMania. Brett says the night before, the literal night before
Yes.
WrestleMania, he gets a call from Vince and says, "This is what we're gonna do. Hulk is gonna get challenged for the belt immediately by Mr. Fuji." And Brett literally goes, "I felt like putting my finger down my throat."
Yeah.
Period.
Like,
I literally felt like making myself vomit. It was so
right.
horrible.
Right.
And like you can tell because basically like
because
Hulk
it
when
does
he's
so many things. It Why did we have Brett lose the championship in the first place?
oh
If we're just going to give it to somebody who's going to lose it immediately. So it tarnishes Brett's championship reign because it just goes, oh, he just got beat by somebody who got beat in 10 seconds. You know what I mean? So it looks bad for Brett.
Outrageous.
It looks bad for Yokozuna. And it honestly looks bad for Hulk because he had no business being there. Like he had no part in this storyline whatsoever. So it's like it just it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and it was obvious to literally everybody because they were confused.
Horrible. It was terrible. And then this really gagged me. Then they have Hulk on, and he's like, "Yeah, it was my idea." But he seems it pissed me off because he seems so proud of himself.
Always.
Like, yeah, this is what the people wanted. Like, yeah, it was my idea. I called Vince and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if XYZ? And he's like, and he sorry, I'm like really ripping into him, but he acted like he was so busy in his life. He's like, I don't even remember why I was leaving. Like, oh, I was probably gonna do like a movie or like, the Thunder Show or whatever he does. He goes, I can't even remember, but all I knew is I was leaving, and I just figured like the belt and la la la. I was like,
that's the gag with all of them. All of them that like that just like don't want to hold on, like to like don't want to hold responsibility for their shitty decisions that they made throughout their career. Oh, like I can't quite remember like what happened. Like, I can't.
I was off to do this, explain the
Right.
like he is so lucky. He's so lucky that Yokozuna is the person or was the person that he was, and he took that with so much grace because
right.
That's crazy, and I'm sorry, like fuck that.
Even though no, honestly, because
That's
it doesn't
so
like it's horrible. It doesn't
it's
make any
horrible.
it didn't make any sense. it just made everybody look bad. It was confusing to the audience, both there and at home. Like, it was just like, oh, okay. And then what did you give the audience? Oh, a title run with this dude that we've already seen
100 times.
like 100 times.
And he's leaving. Why am I putting the belt on him if he's leaving? I don't care. Like, whatever. It's so stupid. Either way, it was the dumbest thing. Literally, Brian Pritchard goes, hindsight, wouldn't have done that. Right. And I was like, that's what I'm saying. And I'm saying, I don't think he wanted to do it in the first place, because even when he was describing it, he seemed so irritated by it. He was like, yeah, well, I wanted to do this, and we ended up doing this stupid thing at the last minute.
Right.
But apparently Yoko was happy either way you looked at it, because it made him, he was a champion for a minute, he had it. And apparently, I was like, this is so funny, because I've asked this question 6 million times and I've never once looked it up, but I think he is the shortest reigning champion. Because, like, I was like, oh, there are people who switched within, like, 24 hours. Yeah. He was the shortest reigning champion. Like, he literally lost it within, like, 3 minutes. So I was like, that.
For now, yeah.
Well, at this moment, yes, at this moment in time. Because I was like, that, I always wondered. And I'm like, well, I'm glad I didn't look it up, because it would have ruined this. And this, I needed to be, like, freshly angry about this.
I get that.
So then I guess they fight at King of the Ring, June 13th, 1993. And like, they had a match, and like a rematch for the championship belt. And Hulk was like, the place, it was like a bomb was dropped in it. Like, the like stadium was so electric with energy. Like, it was, people were waiting for this match. And it's funny, they showed like clips of people being interviewed outside, and they're like, I can't wait to watch Hulk Hogan beat Yokozuna's ass, like, whatever. And it's just like, got another thing coming, baby girl. Rikishi says Vince trusted him and knew that this was all riding on his back, and Yokozuna took that responsibility very seriously.
Right.
And it's true. Like, I'm sorry, I don't care if you're Hulk Hogan. Like, it's just as much of the heel you're fighting that makes you look good. Like, right. And Yokozuna is an insanely formidable opponent that made you look excellent for your little farewell tour, your little minute,
right,
of whatever that you needed. Hulk says it was a pleasure to work with him, and hopefully it gave him a platform to get to the next level. That also made me mad. He was at that level, and you had to come in here and take the belt, you freak. Right. That really made me mad. Hopefully it gave him a platform to get to the next level.
I mean,
not no, but like, I get it. But
yeah, yeah. I mean, he's the one you want to beat for the title.
I know. And literally, I knew you were going to say that too. I was like, I'm going to say that, and Xavier's going to be like, well.
I mean, he's the one. He is.
I know.
Undertaker literally called him the Golden Goose.
I know, it's true. It's so true. Yeah, Undertaker literally says, when you beat the Golden Goose and you beat him in that fashion, that means you've arrived. Afa says it was a moment that really touched my heart. Oh, because obviously he beats Hulk. I don't know if I mentioned that. Beats Hulk, gets the belt. Thank God. Amen. Afa says it was a moment that really touched my heart, how proud I was to see one of our kids that was blessed with this opportunity. Lloyd said he was Yokozuna was so happy he literally broke down as soon as he got backstage, like tears of joy, just overwhelmed. And then from then on, he became the star that he always was. And allegedly, like, there was minimal jealousy over Yoko holding the title, because like, I don't remember who said it, but they were like, when somebody holds a title and they're kind of newer and you don't really know, like, it can incur a lot of jealousy backstage, but there really wasn't any, because Yoko was such an amazing guy. People felt like he'd earned it. I think Bruce says he came from a wrestling family, he had the legacy, and he wasn't the type of person to rub it in anyone's face. Yoko took it as it came. He was very humble, and he worked his ass off to get to that point. So he had such a level of respect in the locker room that allegedly there was very minimal ill will towards him acquiring the belt the way that he did.
There you go.
And I think as a wrestler, after seeing what happened to him at WrestleMania 9, I would have been like, give that man the belt. This is BS. I would have been like, just let him have it, because this is stupid. If that had happened to me, forget it. I will be mad about that forever.
LOL, that's so funny.
So You know what would have been crazy? Sorry, this is a
Mm.
total sidebar. If like one of the, which it wouldn't have happened, but it would have been really crazy if like one of the, he was like, it happened with one of like the, wasn't Hulk Hogan, it was like one of the Rhodes family members. And then it was
Mm.
like a really old beef. Like you had to come and take the
LOL.
title from Yokozuna, my family, whatever. There's already enough beef there, but
Well,
that would have been really
there's
crazy.
they alluded to this match where like it was Dusty versus um one Roman Reigns' like grandfather or something like in a match. They
Oh,
like
right,
talk
right,
about
right.
it. Like so like it has it did come full circle.
Yeah, it did. It did. It did. Stone Cold says he was super laid back, very easygoing. There wasn't a guy on the crew that did not like him or respect him. Rikishi said he was just a nice dude. He would talk to the janitor, he talked to the sound guy, he talked to literally whoever. He was just a nice dude. Um, then the Godfather, who's a wrestler, WWE Hall of Famer, says he was not a good guy. He was a great guy, a massive human being with a massive heart.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we meet, or not meet, but we talked to Savio Vega. Love to see
Mm-hmm.
that guy. Always love to see Savio Vega.
I
I know
know.
I know where we're at in our other show. He's in the Nation, and that makes me upset. But like, I always still love to see him. I can't lie. Um, this was crazy. He said, Yokozuna overheard a conversation where some of the guys were trying to get me fired, and Yoko confronted them. Like, why do you want to get him fired when the only thing he's doing is bringing food to his house? And like really stood up for him and
Mm-hmm.
like silenced the haters. And I love that. And Savio Vega's
Mm-hmm.
like he's like has I always had respect for him for that. Like that was one of the nicest things anyone's ever done for me. Like, and it's true. Like, I mean, we talk a lot about how it's wrestling is crazy because it's like if, like I think you said it before. I don't know if it was I think it was when we were talking earlier. It's like, well, you know, Hulk didn't want Brett taking his spot. Like he didn't want him
Mm-hmm.
eating his meals. Like he didn't want
Right.
taking, money out of his pockets or whatever. But it's also like we're all here trying to like trying to, make something happen for ourselves and like feed our families and do
Yeah,
the
but there
best
can
that
only
we
be so
can.
many people on top.
I know, I just hate
It is
it.
like a lot of the competition happened not in the ring.
Mm,
What happened in the ring was like the show.
the
The
show.
competition is backstage.
Wow. Yeah, that's such a good point.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Well, and then look at Savio now. But Undertaker says originally I just wanted to work with him after seeing him because I knew that we would have great matches, but then we really became close friends after getting to know each other. Some of the best times in my life were running around with Rodney. He was one of my nearest and dearest friends.
Mm-hmm.
And even just hearing Undertaker say one of my nearest and dearest friends is just adorable. I just love
Right.
that
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
Rikishi says, he never changed. He was this mega superstar in the industry and he never let the industry change him. And he helped everyone in our whole clan. Everything changed for us because of him. Like literally that idea of like, if I'm eating, everybody's eating. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, Oliveira says, just wanted to take care of everyone. He paid for everything out of love. There was no like bitterness about it. Like he literally just did everything he did for his family out of just this insane love, respect he had for them. And then Jay Uso makes a little brief appearance in this documentary as he should, one of Rodney's nephews, one of the Uso brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And he says he gave me $100 just for bringing him his coffee. Like if he stayed at the house, his father would be like, make sure you vacuum Uncle Rodney's room or make his bed or whatever because you'll get it like a little reward out of that. And he goes, literally gave me $100 just for bringing him his coffee in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I also love coffee that much that I probably would do that too if I had that money.
Right.
Because thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But Rikishi also says Yokozuna put heat in his home. Like there was a time where he was really struggling. His career, he was doing well, but not like crazy well. And he had bought this house, was investing money in it, but like it was few and far between where he can make home improvements. And basically Yokozuna gave him a blank check and was like, whatever you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, we literally had heat in our house through the winter because of him. And like he never expected anything in return, and I'll never forget that. And he was there for me when times were really hard. He was like a true brother to me. And he says the Anoa'is and the Fatus are tight, not just our family, but our culture. We are strong in faith, strong in religion, strong in family, strong in respect, and strong in pride. Once you are taught the values of a Samoan culture, you carry it with you through the rest of your life. And I really respect that. I love that so much because it's something that literally has obviously, and again, this is like a total obvious statement, but it's literally transcended time and space. Like it's just so beyond.
It's like, this is our code of honor, like, and that's it. Like,
and it's never changed.
Right.
And because it's good and beautiful and wonderful. It never there's not, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
And it's like literally, again, it's still an insane, incredible storyline in WWE right now. Today.
Ongoing. Still ongoing. The Bloodline story is still going on.
Still going on. And not just in WWE, but like just Samoan culture in general. Like just it's just this insane, powerful, incredible, beautiful thing. Now Afa says another thing that we taught was because they talk about how what an amazing father he was, and Afa says another thing that we taught is you leave your character on the road. When you are home, you become dad. You are just dad, which I love. And then Kelani, his daughter, says he was awesome. He was my best friend. Justin says when he couldn't drop us off at school, he would send a limo. Like he just really wanted like us to enjoy everything life had to offer. Rikishi says when he was home, he was the Rodney we all knew, but when it was time to be Yokozuna, that's when you saw that face kick in. And he does that like that face.
The mean mug.
God, that mean mug. So good. So in 1993, at 26 years old, Yokozuna was the youngest champion in WWE history at the time.
Yeah.
So crazy. Jerry the King Lawler says he was so believable as a champion. You were like, who could possibly beat him? And this is a question I feel like we ask ourselves on the other show too. It's just like, who could possibly dethrone The Undertaker? Or like, even when I was like, who's going to take out Shawn Michaels? That's crazy. Like, you always wonder, but as Yokozuna, like, I can't imagine. Like, you're just like, I get it. Like, how could you possibly imagine anyone beating that person? It's wild. And we get a little message from Jim Cornette. Also, he makes his appearance in this because he was Yokozuna's manager at one point. He says, you could buy that this guy could beat the shit out of The Undertaker, because The Undertaker obviously was one of the superstars of the time, and they had such amazing chemistry together. And like, this was a person who you actually believed was legitimately fighting with The Undertaker instead of The Undertaker just like wiping their competitor out.
Right.
Undertaker says we had really good chemistry together. It was magic. And he knew how to work his gimmick. So Yokozuna was WWE champion for 280 consecutive days. And in 1994, he would defend his title against Bret Hart at WrestleMania 10.
Right.
Crazy. So it's like
back-to-back main events. Yeah. But they're gonna do it right.
Thank you. So Bret talks about this, and I always wondered about this and like felt this in my spirit, but Bret says there's always some heartbreak when you lose the title, and if it doesn't hurt you, then something is wrong with you. And I can imagine that. Like I can imagine, I can't really, like getting the phone call and it's like, that's about that time. The title's got to change hands. Like it's like, it's hard. Like it hurts like to lose the title.
Well, yeah, because it's like a nod from the company that being like, you're our guy, you're who we want as to be like the face, to do the interviews and do the blah 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 blah. And so when that's like given to somebody else, it's like, oh, like, did I not do a good enough job? Like, you know what I mean? Or like and it's there's like an ongoing thing that's like, if you're not in this business to be the WWE champion, you're in the wrong business. Like you're not doing it right. So it's like, so if that's not your ultimate goal, and then when your ultimate goal like, gets taken and put on somebody else, like it should hurt. It should hurt.
Yeah. And he says like the hurt is always more real than people think. And I get that too, because it's like, you don't know if you're ever going to hold it again. Because I know some people hold it multiple times, obviously.
Some people just like, once.
Just once.
Sometimes it happens, yeah.
Sometimes it happens, and you wonder, like, was that the peak of my career, and it happened in like such a blip I didn't even like really acknowledge it? Because like 280 days is a long, long time, but also like it can be just like with that fast paced like life environment, it can just like, it's just a blink of an eye. So crazy. And And Brett says when he was the champion, he was at his absolute best, a total pro. Jim Cornette says, what monster heel, though, do you know that could ever keep the gig up for that long? Like, keep the title for that long. I mean,
Right.
280 days, like that's crazy.
Yeah, and heels by nature are meant to be toppled. Like that is the whole point, is like they are meant to be, conquered. So to have the bad guy winning for almost a year is not common.
No, it's a nod to who he was. Like, I mean, how talented he was, and like you guys all know that. I mean, he's crazy. But Bruce said there was a point where you couldn't help noticing that Yoko was getting bigger. And they showed this paperwork that they had of where I guess they, for health reasons, like, obviously like measure all the wrestlers, health, weight, whatever. And they show paperwork where his waist size had increased by 20 inches. That's crazy. That's wild. And it was like a 57 to a 77. Really crazy. Bruce says then you start to notice he's getting slower in the ring. He's starting to be one step behind on moves. He's stopping to catch his breath a lot. Like he said there was a few times he noticed, like, even just walking out of the ring, he would have to stop. After the match, he'd have to stop and take a break just to catch his breath. Jerry says you could feel it was affecting his stamina. You could feel that he was struggling just looking at him, like you could feel it. In April of 1995, Bruce says we put him in a tag team with Owen Hart because we knew he couldn't perform as a single anymore.
Yeah, not at that level. Right.
No, and it's also wild for me to think about Owen Hart and Yokozuna being a tag team. Like, I know that they were both managed by Jim Cornette, so that like it's kind of like the Vader Mankind effect, where it's like they're both being managed by Paul, so like we put them together sometimes.
Right.
So it's fascinating to think about, because I also just love the way Owen Hart wrestles, and they're two totally different styles that could be complementary if done the right way, and I'm sure that they did.
Right.
And Brett says, I think Owen liked working with Yoko, but he knew he would be doing the brunt of the work because like Yoko just didn't have it in him anymore. And as he got bigger, traveling became a real issue for him. Like, double seats on the airplane, like just he had a lot of problems. And then in Pittsburgh, he literally like broke a toilet off of a wall. Like which is dehumanizing to say the least.
Right.
Brett says it sounded like an explosion. He literally cut himself up on like the broken porcelain of the toilet, which was like, again, like dehumanizing for him, like just horrible. The Godfather says it's hard to tell someone to back off like the food a little bit when he was always just a big guy. It's like, that's who he is. And it's hard to say that to anyone generally.
Yeah.
You just can't say that. Like, I feel weird even talking about this. Like talking about Yokozuna like just getting bigger. Like it feels itchy to me. Like I don't want to say it. Like,
right. But
and
it
I
is
know this is the facts.
reality. Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
so I know this is the facts. And again, this could be my own internalized whatever, but it's just like it feels wrong to talk about it. So I get it. I get like, how do you say to your friend, like, hey, like maybe it's time to chill out with like the food and whatever. Especially it's hard too, because when like in the beginning they made it the spectacle of like, look how much this person can eat. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that amazing? And now it's like, actually, maybe we need to relax with that. Like it I can't imagine. Like that has to be really difficult.
Right.
Mark Henry says he was when he first came into the WWE, he was the go get it guy for Yoko. Like he'd be like, hey Mark, go get me a bucket of chicken. And what am I supposed to say? Like, Yoko, man, you're 600 pounds and you should be around 400 pounds. Like I'm sitting there eating half a bucket of chicken myself. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
And Rikishi said we had that conversation. Like we had the conversation about the weight. And I said, it's time to take care of yourself now, Rod. But Rod being Rod, he said, ain't nothing wrong with me. I can still go. And, maybe he was in denial. I don't really know. But no, you couldn't tell him anything. He was like, nope, I'm fine. It's totally fine. Bruce Pritchard said, then we had to send him to a loading dock where they weigh crates and things like that just to weigh him. And we're like, no, like it's like, it's really time to get help. He was like, it was a holy shit moment. You have to drop some weight. We tried dieting and workout routines, but Yoko just didn't do them.
Right.
And this was like the moments where I was like, where Bruce was like, and he just didn't do them. Like, I don't know, like there were some moments where he was like, he had this like,
I think that's got to be frustrating though.
of course, well, that's what I'm saying. He had this like frustration and like anger, and I think especially too now that I'm reflecting on this, now that you said that, it's like also it's sad because you said so many times and like
You
tried to help
tried,
somebody
like,
so many times that it didn't have to be this way. So actually, yes, I take back what I said. Maybe he was just frustrated, which
yeah,
I get.
or at least that's how I read it. It's just like they were offering him all of this help. Like they were trying to be like, for your
They for
help,
sure did.
like you need to, something has to change. Like,
Yeah.
because then Bruce goes on to the point where he's like, you then have to like face this like point where he's like, he's going to die. Like if this stays up, like keeps up, like there is no other end to the like this behavior. Um, so that's
Which
crazy.
really crazy. And they show a video of him being taken out of the ring with like a forklift because he had injured his ankle and they like couldn't get him on the stretcher, so they like literally had a forklift or like a
Mm-hmm.
thing like come in and take him out. Um and they, like you said, they really did. They tried to help him. They were going to send him to Duke University where they had this like weight loss program thing and he
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't move. So he was like, "Oh, I'll do it at home." He was off for 3 months and he
Mm-hmm.
came back bigger than ever.
Yeah.
And Rikishi starts noticing him doing the nodding off thing, which now if like
If
it's
you don't
just
know, it is a side effect of sleep apnea. Fun
mm,
fact. So it is a common problem with people that are like pretty overweight. Though their weight literally cuts off their oxygen supply while they're in sleeping or like in moments of rest where they're not in control of their muscles.
mhm,
Um, so what ends up happening is they throughout the night are essentially being woken up by them suffocating, which means they don't ever get a full night's sleep. So what ends up happening is they end up like becoming obviously like exhaustion and fatigue will set in. So from that point, they will start like just losing consciousness because they're so tired, from not being able to sleep because of the sleep apnea, because they're just not their weight is too much that they can't even breathe,
wow.
essentially.
Yeah, they're like suffocating themselves.
Yeah.
Like it's wild. And like Savio Vega tells that story where he's like, we were in the locker room and he literally was like choking and like couldn't come up for air. He like couldn't breathe. And
Yeah.
it happened like multiple times.
Hmm.
That's so crazy. And Bruce, like you said, says we're faced with this horrible thing, like where he's gonna die. And I said to him, like, please don't do this. Like, forget about the business. Think of your family, think of yourself. And he thought he was fine, and he just was not fine. And basically, doctors assess him, give him a physical, and are like, you can't compete anymore. In 1997, Rodney was unable to pass a physical exam issued by the New York State Athletic Commission, and he was then released by the WWE.
Yeah.
And this,
It's like their back was against the wall, like they couldn't, like we literally just got told by doctors that you physically cannot do this anymore.
you can't, and like what are you gonna do? And like literally, Bruce says, I think Vince hoped this would be the wake up call
Right.
that Rodney needed to make a change, because if you don't have that thing like the WWE, like you don't have to keep wrestling, like maybe you can focus on yourself, you can go home, you can take time, you can
or
regroup.
or maybe this was like, or like Vince thought like maybe this will be his like rock bottom. Maybe this will be like the
Right.
thing that like
Yes.
wakes him up to be like, oh hey, the only thing I like loved doing and was good at, like I no longer can do anymore.
Yes.
Like, but
Right.
alas.
Which, right. Rikishi says, I get why they did it. Like they literally had no choice. They had to do it. And Vince says Roddy was a great guy, but he couldn't give it up. Everyone tried to help him, but at some point you have to want to help yourself, which,
Mm-hmm. It's true.
tale as
We
old
know.
as time.
Right.
Um, Brett says it's tough to try and be normal coming home after a career like that. It's an adjustment. So like after you've devoted your life to the WWE and to wrestling and suddenly you're just home, like it's crazy. And Brett's like, no one ever really talks about that. Like suddenly you're on top of the world, you're so famous, you're a superstar, whatever, and then you come
And it's
home and
go
it's
go
like,
go, and it's go go go, and then all of a sudden it's like you're halted. Like
you're just living at
You're
home.
sitting you're sitting
It's
at home, you're not getting the rush, your schedule is no longer like regimented the way that it had been for X amount of years. Like
yep.
there's a whole lot of, and then Lord knows what you're going through mentally. Like you just lost your job, you just like, so not a
Yeah.
great place to be.
No. And so he doesn't last long at home. In 1998, Rodney returns to the independent circuits. And what Bruce says is what was sad to me about Yokozuna going to the independents after WWE was that the myth and the attraction of Yokozuna didn't exist. So for those of us who were friends of his and that really loved him, it was very sad. It was very hard to watch because Yoko became a shell of himself.
Mm-hmm.
But to his family's credit, Afa says he felt like he let us down, but none of us felt that way. Like all of us
Mm-hmm.
just wanted him to get better. Rikishi said, I could give a rat's ass about the money. I cared about his health. Like I didn't care that he wasn't, like necessarily like bringing home the bacon every week. Like I just wanted him to be
Mm-hmm.
well. We loved him regardless. He didn't have to prove anything to us.
Yeah.
Um,
And I imagine it's hard for somebody who took on a lot of familial responsibility to accept that. Not
of
not that like
course.
to because like when you have been the provider for a lot of your family,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden that's like eh, all of a sudden through actions of yours, like that's no longer a viable thing. Like it's hard to believe that like people love and support you unconditionally, like
Oh my God.
that there are no like caveats or transactions or whatever. It is just these people are in my corner regardless. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not always the easiest thing to make yourself believe.
Yep. We
Yeah,
talk about that all the time.
we do fully.
In our real waking life, we talk
Yeah.
about that all the time. So yeah, it's a completely understandable. And this I obviously can only imagine is heightened to the absolute extreme because it's
Hmm.
like the career in and of itself is full of extremes. So like then
Right.
to just like I can't imagine. So in 1999 at age 33, Rodney moved to Las Vegas to help start a wrestling school. Um Olivera was saying he was taking in kids that didn't have a place to go. And they were living there with him when they needed a place to stay. And I always looked up to him for that. So he started the school and then he would just like kids who were in bad situations, didn't have anywhere else to go. They could also live at the school with
Hmm.
him, which is so sweet. But then in October of 2000, Rodney travels to England for a month-long wrestling tour. So
Hmm.
it kind of feels like it bummed me out because it felt like the school, I was like, oh, this is going to be the thing that, even though I know the outcome of the story, I was like, oh, maybe this will be the thing that gives him purpose, that gives him like, oh, okay, like
Hmm.
I have a reason to do something. Like I'm
Hmm.
teaching these other kids, I'm moving my body, I'm like, helping
Right.
people and, maybe it like
And
you
I feel like
hoped
it was
for
like,
like a minute, yeah.
well, yeah, his body, yeah.
Yeah, because it was like 1999 he started or like went to the school and then within the year he's back on tour in 2000. But it's just
Well, wrestlers that run wrestling schools also
like tour. Yeah,
go
I
out
know.
and do
I was
that.
hoping he would just like stay. Like and like
Oh, gotcha, gotcha,
again, I
gotcha.
know the outcome of the story, but I was
Hmm.
hoping like the school would be the thing that like
Saves him.
yes, like I don't know. Again, I already knew, but I still was like, ah, let this be the thing. Um, but his sister says, I spoke to him while he was in London. He was still the same goofy Rod. He was doing what he did, or he was doing what he loved, whether it was WWE or not. It was his passion, and it's what he absolutely loved to do. Um, and on October 23rd, 2000, is unfortunately when Rodney is found dead in his hotel room in London.
Hmm.
Um, and so this was what when we were saying before, like he was literally the night before, like he talked to his sister, he talked to his cousin, he talked to his uncles. He literally called everyone. He was like, hey, I'm in London. This is my day. Like just did the whole phone call like
Right.
line and like was normal, was totally fine, or at least he appeared to be like
Hmm.
fine. Um and literally so Big Sam says he called saying goodnight, that he was really tired. He just felt so exhausted, really tired, but he was in good spirits. And I said, you need to go to sleep. You need to just rest. Um, and he unfortunately died in his sleep. Like his body just gave out. So Big Sam got very emotional, obviously, because he said go to sleep. And I mean, not that he wasn't going to anyway, but he really broke down because he was like, oh, you're tired, like you need to go to sleep. And like his body was very tired.
Right.
Afa says the last thing I said to him was to take care of yourself. And then I get the call 24 hours later that he's passed. And his sister says it was devastating. I just dropped the phone and collapsed. And then this moment, this I really got me from Sika. So emotional. He said it was my fault. This really got me. I really felt for him. He said it was my fault. I told my brother I was going to take care of his son, and I'm sorry, brother, that things didn't go the way that we planned for the good of our kids. I could cry right now.
Yeah, it was rough. And like to carry that is
Oh my God.
is hard.
Because the family ties are so crazy. Because I feel so, crazy attached to my own family, and I can't even imagine that degree. Because they're like, what they have going on is a whole other level in the best way, but also it comes with such deep grief and heartbreak when something like that happens. And not that anyone's grief in any situation is invalid, but like this is when you like, it's like a promise to the brother that I'm going to take care of your son, and then it's like he died in a way that didn't have to happen, and like having to live with that, like that is like I just can't imagine. He's like a sweet old man with like a huge career behind him, and this whole family, like there's just so much there. The emotion was insane, and I was like, wow, this man.
And it's like it, because they're very much of like a it takes a village type of people, like it, like the village was devastated, like
yes.
So
yes, oh my God. So Rikishi says on the very next Monday Night Raw, they had the tribute to Yokozuna, and my body was there but my mind was not. I was in a complete state of shock and devastation. Mark Henry says, I found out when I went to the arena that night to wrestle, and all the boys were in the locker room crying, and they told me that Yoke had died, and I just broke down because I couldn't believe it. Undertaker says, I was devastated. It was tough on all of us. Savio says, it was like losing a brother. Like, why do we have to lose people like that? And it's true, especially that era. That whole era, I mean, is just fraught with
loss
devastating
and
things like that. And Brett expresses how frustrated he was. He was like, it's horrible because it's like, what more could we have done? Like, there, you just wonder, like, if I had made another phone call, if I had said that one right thing, if I had done XYZ, like, would it have changed something? And Bruce says, Yoko was too young to die, but it was tragic in that Yoko was a larger than life character and that he was actually larger than life. And that is what ultimately took him out. And that is crazy. Like you said, like he was the spectacle for being big. And then it's that being big that killed him.
Right.
Wild.
And it's like very crazy. It's like not dissimilar to like that vicious cycle that wrestlers get in where it's like, oh, I beat up my body, so I take pills and then I do the thing. It's like I am the spectacle being larger than life, but keeping that up is what ultimately, does me in. Like that's crazy.
It is. It's such a vicious cycle. The psychology of that is really crazy. And like I know we're obviously not the first people to talk about this, not the last. Like this is not news, but it's just the psychology of that is really wild. Like how that happens, like impaled on your own sword at the end.
Right.
The thing that saved your life more times than you can count.
Right.
Is wild. But in about a year later, November 29, 2001, Uncle Afa puts together a Yokozuna memorial show. And this was sweet because Undertaker makes time for it. Undertaker's in this crazy busy schedule. And he's like, well, I'm making time to do that. They like asked him and he's like, I will be there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Love that. And Rikishi said, Taker loved Rod and he was his brother from another mother. And like the fact that he showed up just showed you how much he cared, or how much, you know, their relationship meant to each other. And everyone who was there who talks about it said it was comforting, it was a celebration, it was like a beautiful moment. Like it was, and it was cool too because it was in like a smaller venue.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was in
like
like
people,
Allentown, like
Allentown, Pennsylvania. Like it was so random, but it was like the energy there. Again, I love a small venue moment. I know that you do too, where it's just like the people who are there want to be there so badly. And like,
right.
so they're so invested in what's happening. Like they're just
Mm-hmm.
all in. And it just seemed like a really beautiful thing. And then uh Yokozuna is inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And Rikishi accepts the award on his behalf, but a lot of his family is up there, his children are up there, his sister is up there. And they talk about the Samoan dynasty of their family, of the Anoa'is and the Fatus, and like just like the impact that they have in the community, which again, like they still do. This was 2012 and like still happening.
Yep.
Mark Henry says Yoko opened the doors for the Polynesian wrestler. He took it all the way to championship capacity. Like he just opened the door for that type of wrestler to like make it in a way that is respectable, not just like the, like we said before, the savage, the Samoan savage. Roman Reigns says he was our first top guy, the first of us to have the responsibility of the title, and it carried us through the rest of our years. Brett says he was the most agile, athletic big man in the history of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, without a doubt, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Bruce says the audience never got to know the Rodney Anoa'i and the human being behind that. Yoko wasn't Yoko. Yoko was Rodney Anoa'i playing Yoko and doing it very, very well. But the real man behind it was the prince.
I love that line. Yeah.
Me too. Me too. Lloyd says we love what he became and what he did for the wrestling industry and being an icon and everything, but for us, we miss him just as a loving family member, a cousin, an uncle, and a dad. And then the episode ends with Rikishi saying, "This was the Yokozuna that people didn't know. Happy-go-lucky, giving, humble. This is the Rodney behind the scenes that I wish one day everybody can know that person, the man, the legend, the icon."
Mm. Yeah.
I love this. I'm so happy we watched this because, like I said, again, I'm new to wrestling. So I really only got a glimpse of Yokozuna as like a spectacle, and he's at the tail end of his career.
Mm-hmm.
Like you know, at this point in time, like he is not around. And
right.
so I, even when he was introduced, like I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know the impact he had. I knew he was, you know, a part of the family, like the
Right.
family, but I didn't really understand like really truly the impact that he had in the in just wrestling generally, but even in like the community, like the Samoan community, like the Anoa'i family, like how important he actually was, where he was the first of their family to legitimately hold a title belt. Like that is really crazy. And he's a heel. He was a villain. He was like this big, like larger than life person. And like it's so crazy how it's one of those weird, again, this is like stupid and obvious, but it's one of those weird moments of like Sonder where you're like, it's just every single person has this most intricate and crazy story and how they're like intertwined with so many other things.
Right.
And like the fact that I only knew him just as this blip for like a minute, and now he just has this whole like
the context of him is
so
great.
It's as large in life as he was. Like it's just expansive and crazy and like amazing. So happy we watched this. Love that
good.
guy.
I'm glad. Good. I'm glad. Because he's somebody that like is like such a staple as far as like that transition era between you know, Hulk Hogan and the Attitude Era that we're in now. He was just one of the main like just players in that world. And just somebody that I think nowadays just we just, you know, all of this time has passed, so he just doesn't get, you know, brought up as much. But man, does that guy deserve flowers.
Oh my God, all of them.
So
all of them. And I do, it is a beautiful thing. Again, I love the family aspect of it, like how his family is carrying on his legacy, and they're all amazing and unique and have their own way, and like, but they still support each other. There's so many amazing things I could say, but like you guys get the gist. Yeah, so I'm so happy that we watched that. And thank you all so much for joining us on this episode of New to Wrestling After Dark. We hope you enjoyed diving into Yokozuna. Hopefully you'll join us next week, where we're going to talk about Pat Patterson, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I am thrilled to talk about Pat Patterson.
So guys, a little I guess housekeeping note. Me and my infinite wisdom today, we had recorded a episode covering In Your House, A Cold Day in Hell. Somehow, some way, I managed to delete the footage.
So sad.
Yeah, I know we cracked ourselves up, as we typically do, but this one in particular we thought was very hee. But so what we are going to do is this week we're just gonna have this episode that you just listened to, obviously. This weekend, in place of After Dark, we're gonna have just kind of like a year in review. Me and Kelsey are just gonna sit and chat. We're just gonna catch up, see where we are, see what we've learned, just kind of chit chat.
So
next
excited.
Week, when we review the following episode of Raw, we will tack on a couple of the big matches from the pay-per-view, and then move on into the episode of Raw. And then look out for an episode on Pat Patterson as our kind of Pride Month feature After Dark episode.
Love that guy.
Love that guy.
Love that guy. Can't wait.
So yeah. So this has been the New to Wrestling Podcast After Dark. Thank you guys, and we will catch you next week.
We will see you there.
Bye.
Bye.